Today on r/malicious compliance. Need my uniform before you will give me my last check? No problem. This is a story from my mom and my grandmother. They gave me permission to post. Quite a while ago, both my mom and my grandmother worked for one of the local casinos. At the time, the casino had a 90-day trial, and then you would get insurance. During the course of them working there during the 90-day trial, the casino switched their policy to 18-month trial before getting insurance. So they then proceeded to find reasons to fire all of their employees who were coming up on the 90-day, so that they would not be grandfathered in. My mom knew this was coming because she saw a person after a person who had gone hired a little bit before her get fired for ridiculous reasons. So when she got called in the office the day after she had to go to the hospital for a severe allergic reaction, she knew what was coming. They marked it as a no-call, no-show because she started having a severe allergic reaction on shift, and her EpiPen didn't work. She walks into the office, she's informed that due to her no-call, no-show, she is being let go effective immediately. She asked for her final check. They informed her that she would receive the check after she turned in her uniform. My mother proceeded to removing her clothes, drop the uniform on the supervisor's desk, and demand her last check. She stood there, in her underwear, for 40 minutes while they tried to convince her to turn the uniform in at a later day. Nope, you said I'd get my check when I turned in my uniform. There is my uniform. I want my check. Eventually they wrote out a check. She then walked out, taking the long route through the casino, saying her goodbye to all the staff and regulars on her way out. So a couple days later, when my grandma had her shift, she knew what to expect. Because she was coming up on that same time frame, and my grandma proceeded to do the exact same thing. My grandma walked through the crowded casino in her underwear. For our next story. Delete it? You sure? Okay. So I am a fiend for Excel spreadsheets. Absolutely love them, and even bought an extra wide monitor for home so I can see them in all their glory. My boss keeps telling me that she's an advanced Excel user. She can run macros, she can do pivot tables, she knows formulas. Not once have I seen her create or manipulate a spreadsheet in the 6 months I've worked for her. So I had a template on our Teams chat that we used every week. It was automated to within an inch of its life to tell us about the company's health. We've been using it for the last 4 months after I was given approval by the boss to make it live, gave her a tutorial and everything. This was for the admins to all see it, and I'd only need to update the raw data once a week instead of send it manually to whoever wanted it on a given day, up to 4 times a day usually. Took out about 6 HRR's work a week having it set up like that. While the boss told me to take it down because a different department who hadn't seen it was worried about personal data when one of the admins told them about it. There isn't anything like that in there, and anything that isn't open access is password hidden anyway. Our IT team has to be formally requested to add a new member to our team's chat. The spreadsheet is password protected. The tabs are password protected, and the whole company is locked down hard anyway. So boss orders me to take it down and delete it, run a fresh one for anyone who wants it. So I explained there wasn't anything in it that was personal or private data, but got told nope, delete it. Tried to explain we use it among the admins every day and it has all these built-in features, tables, etc. Nope, delete it. So I did. The fallout? Q today boss says to me her big boss meeting is presenting figures to the executives tomorrow. She starts quoting figures that are wildly out from the true numbers. I questioned where they came from, and she shows me a Frankenstein report that is saying the exact opposite of what she thought. Run by someone not even in our department. I tell her the accurate grand total and show her how I got there with a simple table and some screenshots I had of the original shared spreadsheet. She asks for access and I tell her it's been deleted. I explained why and even showed the meeting notes where she had approved its use after viewing it. She denies any knowledge of it but wants it back. I said it would take me 2-3 days to make it again due to my workload increases. I saved a copy of the template, but no way am I telling her that. This will give me breathing room to get the backlog out of my queue while she thinks I'm working on it. Let her sweat through that executive meeting knowing every figure is wrong. No one saving her ass in this team anymore. Let's dive into our next story. Karen says stop cheating to reserve the best parking space in front of the building. A Karen neighbor of mine complained that my roommate and I park in the same parking spot, which is right next to the walkway up to the apartment building. Both of us ride motorcycle and both motorcycles belong to me, but my roommate rides one to get to work. She accused me of using my second bike to get a de facto reserved a parking spot when nobody in the complex has one, and said that what I'm doing is not fair and it's cheating. I said okay, I'll stop parking both my bikes in one spot. She seemed satisfied with that and left. An hour later I had all 7 of my motorcycles, 5 of them from inside the garage I rent, but it's halfway across the apartment complex, sitting in front of the apartment building taking up every prime parking space in front of the walkway to my hall in the building. She went straight to the management to complain. The management came out and knocked on my door. "We can't have you using up every parking space." "Let me guess," Karen complained. "Yes. Yeah, she told me I'm not allowed to have 2 bikes in one parking space to reserve a space. I'm not doing it to reserve a space. Both my roommate and I ride both of the bikes we park in that one space. All the bikes belong to me, but I gave the keys to one of them to my roommate to ride for commuting to work. The other one is my bike for going wherever I need. We park both in one spot to be nice and conserve parking spaces so other people have somewhere to park." I was just showing Karen what would happen if I'm only allowed 1 bike or parking space. The other 5 bikes are generally in another parking space, in my garage where I keep the bikes that I don't ride frequently. The apartment manager said, "I understand. You made your point and I'll talk to her. Please put the other 5 bikes back in the garage." "No problem," I said. It's been a few weeks, haven't heard from Karen. On to the next story. If you have a problem, it better be a 15-minute problem. My husband told me a story yesterday about his act of malicious compliance that happened about a decade ago. In a previous job, he worked 8 to 4 in an office. Many of his colleagues worked 9 to 5, so they were still working when he was leaving. When he was about to leave, he'd usually be asked a technical question or asked to quickly glance over something by another member of staff. This was rarely quick and usually had him standing around for a further 10 minutes, which, on a regular basis, starts to add up. One day, his manager was going over the monthly time sheets and asked my husband why he'd added 10 minutes on 5 days across past month. Bear in mind, flexi time was allowed. My husband explained the situation, referring to the specific problems he was asked to deal with on each of those 5 days. The manager told him that the company only works in 15-minute segments, so he can't put down 10 minutes, it would have to be 15 minutes. "However, we can't round it up because that's dishonest," he said. "So just bear it in mind for next time." This was in front of the rest of the office. That very same week, my husband signs out of his computer at 4 p.m. Just before he leaves, the manager asks him to explain some of the particulars in an email he'd received from a contractor. My husband asks, "How long will it take?" The manager replies, "Just 5 minutes." My husband then says, "Unless it's a 15-minute problem, I'll have to look at it tomorrow." "Is it a 15-minute problem?" His manager turns red and awkwardly says it's not. My husband respectfully states that he will put it at the top of his to-do list the following morning and leaves. One of his colleagues texted him just after 5 and said there was an awkward silence after he'd left, and when the manager eventually got up and left to do something, they all burst out laughing. Edit. Some people were asking about wage theft. He eventually had the 15 minutes added back on after the policy revealed that he could round it up if it was a task that took 7.5 minutes or more, and down if it wasn't. The manager seemed genuinely unaware of this when it was raised. He was salaried, so he wasn't concerned about losing income, just about losing flexi time that could have helped him put if something unprecedented happened, like being stuck in traffic one day. I think managers should spend a certain amount of time a week looking over their own policies, or at least find out what they are before making any kind of instruction. For our next story. Legal tender. When I worked at a gas station in the late 1900s during graveyard, I had this guy come in and bought a candy bar with a 100 bill. "Really? You don't have anything smaller?" "I'm just trying to break the 100. Don't be a jerk." "Fine, just this once." A few days later, guy comes back in, grabs a candy bar, and I see he has other bills in his wallet. Puts the 100 on the table. "Sir, I told you last time it was going to be just the once. I see you have a $5 bill. This is legal tender, you have to take it." "Okay." I reach under the counter and pull out 2 boxes of pennies, 50 cents to a roll, $25 to a box, 17 pounds each. "Here's 50, do you want the rest in nickels?" "What is this?" "It's legal tender. I can choose to give you your change however I see fit. So, do you still want to break the 100, or the 5? "I'm calling your manager." She gets in at 8 a.m., sir, but doesn't take any calls until 10. Our last story for today. You want to put how much concrete in your Civic? Many years ago, I worked in a locally run store that sold a bit of everything. I was the low-paid teenager that carried heavy things to people's vehicles. While working one day, I get called over the radio that a customer needed 12 bags of concrete, 80 pounds each. I was expecting to see a pickup truck or something similar backed up to our loading area. Instead, I saw a small Honda Civic there waiting for me. Thinking it was a mistake, I asked the driver to relocate momentarily as I had someone coming to pick up multiple bags of concrete. Imagine my surprise when they told me they were the customer I was waiting for. I asked the customer how much they wanted to take in each trip, as I believed the nearly 1,000 pounds of concrete might be too much for such a small vehicle to handle safely. The customer became aggravated and insisted that they were taking it all at once. I quickly ran this past the store owner to make sure I wouldn't be held liable for any damages. I ran back, apologized to the customer, and began loading the bags. As I loaded everything up, the customer made several quips about how the customer is always right, and that I was too young and naive to understand that vehicles are engineered with a margin of safety. It quickly became apparent that there was no play left in the suspension, but at this point I just stopped questioning things. I couldn't fit all of the bags in the trunk, so the customer cleared their back seat and I loaded that up as well. Upon leaving the loading area, you could clearly hear things rubbing. As the car went to exit the parking lot, it passed over the elevation change between the lot and the road. There was a loud pop of something breaking, followed by scraping. I could see that the driver was irate in the car. After a moment they got out, looked around and under their car. The guy sheepishly asked for my cell phone because his had ran out of battery and he needed to make a few phone calls. A short time later, a tow truck came to remove the car, and the guy waited in our lot for nearly an hour until his wife could come pick him up. And those are all the stories we have for today. See you tomorrow.